You're watching TAG TV.
Hello viewers, I'm your host Uzma Jafri with another episode of South Asia Focus. Let's begin the show with Pakistan, where the spiraling spate of violence and accusations culminated with an electoral victory of the chief of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf Imran Khan, who allegedly enjoyed a thorough support from army during the run-up and the conduct of the elections. His party emerged as the single largest party in the elections that could be termed unprecedented owing to the violence and disruptions it saw during the process. A report.
Jubilant Imran supporters took to the streets of capital Islamabad and other parts of the country as his party cruised towards victory at midnight of polling cum counting day. Although the PTI couldn't attain the majority, it emerged as the single largest party in the elections that were marred by violence and military high-handedness. 65-year-old Imran Khan, who is widely being termed as the hero for breaking the two-party duopoly that has dominated the Pakistani political discourse, has promised to bring a new Pakistan in the coming time. In a speech peppered with populist pledges, Khan promised to create jobs for the poor and ensured he would build a balanced relationship with the United States that is beneficial for both the countries.
मैं सबसे पहले आपके सामने ये प्लेज करता हूँ, आज मैं आपके सामने वादा आपसे करता हूँ, अवाम के टैक्स के पैसे की मैं हिफाजत करूँगा, अपने सारे हम खर्चे कम करेंगे.
Khan inherits a nation struggling to fight widespread poverty, a worsening relationship with its ally the United States, and multiple Islamist insurgencies. However, giving a shot to the art of statesmanship from the moment he emerged victorious, Khan rolled out a virtual foreign policy of his future Pakistan, which entails a better relationship with the United States.
मैं चाहता हूँ कि अमेरिका के साथ भी, यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स के साथ हमारी एक ऐसे ताल्लुकात हों जो कि म्यूचुअली बेनिफिशियल हों, यानी एक ऐसे हों जो दोनों मुल्कों के लिए फ़ायदामंद हों. अभी तक बदकिस्मती से हमारे ताल्लुकात वन वे रहे हैं, यानी कि अमेरिका समझता है कि पाकिस्तान को इमदाद करता है उनकी अमेरिका की जंग लड़ने के लिए. इससे पाकिस्तान को बहुत नुकसान पहुंचा है.
Although it is being hailed by many, the supporters of jailed former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif has accused Khan of colluding with the army, said the election process and the count was rigged, and termed it as an assault on democratic structure of Pakistan. Shahbaz Sharif, who was in fray following his elder brother and former PM Nawaz's conviction, criticized the election results, calling them a military exercise.
हम इस रिजल्ट को रिजेक्ट करते हैं, बिल्कुल मुस्तरद करते हैं. हम इस रिजल्ट को तस्लीम नहीं करते. बाखुदा मैं आपको ऐसा आदमी जो कि एक इंतहाई सुलहकुन आदमी, एक अपना मामलात को आगे बढ़ाने वाला आदमी, अगर मैं ये कह रहा हूँ तो समझ लीजिए कि किस शदीद तरीके से अपना पोलिंग स्टेशन पर ज्यादती हुई है.
Pakistan Army, which has a dominant role in Pakistani politics and the formation of domestic as well as foreign policy of the country, was instrumental in reaching the results available today. It deployed 371,000 soldiers, nearly 5 times the number deployed at the last election in 2013, in order to bring the favourable results. Former PM was believed to have run afoul of the military, which prompted army generals to launch an indirect coup through judiciary, eventually sending him and his daughter for significant period of jail.
Earlier, Justice Shaukat Aziz Siddiqui of the Islamabad High Court had accused the army chief and Pakistan's intelligence agency ISI of interference in the legal process. To speak more on the issue, we have Mr. Rahul Jalali, a political and defense expert, with us. Mr. Jalali, how do you analyze the general elections of Pakistan, and do you think the elections were truly democratic in nature, especially after the attacks launched by the opposition?
Well, I mean, the elections in Pakistan, I won't call it elections, I'll call it selection. It's selection of the Prime Minister and the candidate by the army. That's what's happened. And it was a sham of an election. You could see the manner in which results were declared or not declared, and the kind of things which the opposition raised. Obviously, and also the involvement of terrorist groups who contested the elections. So obviously, what do you talk about? It was just to give legitimacy to the army through a mouthpiece which happened to be the former cricketer Imran Khan.
Do you think Pakistan is going to make any significant change in its foreign policy vis-a-vis India, which has been largely based on spreading terror in India?
Well, I think the elections and the manner in which it was fought is enough indication that anyone who wants to change the anti-Indian policy of the Pakistan establishment cannot survive. You look what happened to Nawaz Sharif, who was perceived as being someone who's friendly to India. He was put behind bars in a judgment which leaves many in doubt. And also what Imran Khan represents is a major anti-Indian voice, or that's what he's been speaking about. His speech just after the polls were over, and it seemed that he will win. What he said then was completely against India. So the policy is going to be there. Also mainstreaming, or what the army called mainstreaming of terrorists. This is a reflection of what the foreign policy, especially the policy towards India, is going to be.
Thank you, Mr. Jalali. Moving on. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi attended the 10th BRICS Summit held in South African city of Johannesburg. This was the first BRICS Summit since US President Donald Trump's push for rebalancing of trade, multilateralism and resorting to trade protectionism. This adamant stance of the United States, which has been criticized across the globe, has provided BRICS members a fresh impetus to enhance trade cooperation, and their leaders have found a collective voice championing global trade. A report.
Home to over 43% of global population and a combined GDP of more than 23%, the BRICS Association held its 10th annual summit in the Johannesburg with the primary aim of countering the trade protectionism which has emerged following US President Donald Trump's hardened stance over growing trade deficit. The leaders attending the event urged for an increased level of industrialization in Africa to strengthen infrastructure construction and promotion of free trade in the summit, which had the theme of BRICS in Africa, collaboration for inclusive growth and shared prosperity, the fourth industrial revolution. While addressing the plenary session, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi called for sharing the best practices and policies in the area. He reaffirmed India's commitment to multilateralism, international trade and rules-based world order.
भारत फोर्थ इंडस्ट्रियल रिवॉल्यूशन के विषय पर ब्रिक्स देशों के साथ मिलकर काम करना चाहता है। इस संबंध में हमें मिलकर बेस्ट प्रैक्टिसेस और पॉलिसीज साझा करनी चाहिए। आजकल हो रहे और भविष्य में होने वाले टेक्नोलॉजी परिवर्तनों का ब्रिक्स देशों और पूरी दुनिया के लिए महत्व को ध्यान में रखते हुए मैं ये सुझाव देना चाहूंगा कि हमारे मंत्री इस विषय पर और विस्तार से विचार करें और आवश्यकता अनुसार विशेषज्ञों की भी मदद लें।
The fourth industrial revolution is the fourth major industrial era since the initial industrial revolution of the 18th century. It is characterized by a fusion of technologies that is blurring the lines between the physical, digital and biological spheres. Focusing on the prevailing issues, Chinese President Xi Jinping called for a concerted effort by global institutions such as the United Nations, the G7 and the World Trade Organization to fight unilateralism and protectionism.
要在联合国、20国集团、世界贸易组织等框架内， 坚定维护基于规则的多边贸易体制，推动贸易和投资自由化、便利化，旗帜鲜明反对保护主义。
The BRICS countries have battled out several trade and economic bottlenecks in the past and have often set examples before the world. These countries have united around the common goal, have taken concrete steps in one direction through the creation of the new development bank and the contingent reserve arrangement. The grouping has become increasingly robust with time, and projects such as India-Japan's Asia-Pacific Growth Corridor and China's Belt and Road initiatives led by BRICS countries could further help strengthen the practical links between the grouping and the rest of the developing world. Convinced with the progress the grouping has made in recent times, Putin, the Russian president, hailed the unity with which the group was working.
Страны БРИКС сообща противодействуют наиболее острым вызовам и угрозам мира и стабильности. Сотрудничают в вопросах борьбы с терроризмом и экстремизмом, нелегальным наркотрафиком, трансграничной преступностью. Отмечу, что объединение занимает уникальное место в глобальной экономике. Это самый большой рынок в мире.
On the sidelines of the event, Indian Prime Minister Modi held a meeting with Chinese Premier Xi Jinping, where both addressed issues of mutual interests, including trade and investment, along with cultural relations. This was the third time Modi and Xi were meeting in a span of just a few weeks. Modi also held a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin, which he later described as wide-ranging and productive through a tweet. He also affirmed that India-Russia friendship is deep-rooted and both countries will work together in multiple sectors.
In line of reaching out to African countries, Modi became the first Indian Prime Minister to visit the African countries of Rwanda and Uganda. Moving on to the war-torn Afghanistan, where the United States has been assertively weighing in for the peace talks between the Ghani government and the Taliban insurgents. In a period of just a fortnight, the United States, through its different representatives, have sought to bring the insurgents to the negotiating table. The Trump administration has repeatedly expressed its willingness to moderate the talks in order to restore peace in the region that has been ravaged by the 17-year-long war. It has also floated the idea of including other countries in order to have a non-partisan conversation. A report.
Violence has risen dramatically in Afghanistan as Taliban has resurged at an overwhelming rate since the phased withdrawal of allied troops in 2014. The rate of widespread terror attacks has only escalated in recent times, with hundreds of civilians getting killed this year alone. Statistics and reports from different sources indicate around 60% of the Afghan territory is under direct control or Taliban influence, and these insurgents have been successfully recapturing the large swaths of territories. However, the United States, which has intensified its military operations in the rebel-held territories, is assured of its victory in the region through its multidimensional strategy at work. Apart from its military route, the US has also been vigorously backing the peace talks between the Afghanistan government and the insurgents. John Nicholson, the commander of Resolute Support in Afghanistan, says his team's ramped-up efforts have yielded results in Afghanistan and the restoration of peace in the region is just a matter of time.
The advancement towards the reconciliation goal of President Trump's strategy has seen progress in the last year that we haven't seen in the previous 17 years, and that is significant. I think that's for the reason that we have now gone to a conditions-based strategy. We're no longer on a timeline for withdrawal.
Working in the line of its Afghanistan policy, the United States had earlier increased the number of its troops in the country and gave greater authority to its commanders to use airstrikes against the Taliban. Nicholson, however, acknowledged the fact that there were numerous bottlenecks before both the US administration and the Kabul government, and they both were required to work in coherence to accomplish peace.
Some of these traditional metrics, like levels of violence and population control, while still relevant and important, should not outweigh the importance of advancing the peace process.
The optimism of the United States was reinforced when the extraordinary gesture of Kabul government to extend a ceasefire was reciprocated by the Taliban with a 3-day Eid ceasefire, which brought the scenes of unarmed fighters and soldiers mingling on the streets. While a section of the US administration is optimistic of the war coming to an end in near future, others, however, believe that the Trump team must tread carefully in order to achieve its objective in the region.
There is cause for cautious optimism and evidence that our South Asia strategy is working. The most dramatic evidence of this was manifested in the recent when our conditions-based approach allowed President Ghani and the Afghan National Defense and Security Forces to set the conditions for the first ever nationwide ceasefire. And although the ceasefire was temporary, all parties respected the terms, and there were very few reported breaches. The ceasefire demonstrated the increased desire for peace, not only from the Afghan people, but from the belligerents of the conflict as well.
In spite of the US administration's hopes and assertions, the present situation is increasingly volatile in the country, with seemingly endless attacks undermining the government of the President Ashraf Ghani. An intensified violent campaign by the Taliban insurgents to drive out international forces and reimpose their version of strict Islamic law poses an immediate and bigger challenge in the front of the government. Now it remains to be seen what plan of action do the duo of Kabul and Washington execute in order to bring normalcy back in the region.
The US remains confident that peace talks will commence despite the temporary setback. Moving on to Bangladesh, where the Rohingya refugees who have been living in dreadful conditions after the exodus last year from the Rakhine state are being studied by a renowned human rights group who came up with a report which has investigated into the events last year. We have a report.
Swollen hands and feet, scar marks and bullet injuries are just some of the wounds that the Rohingya refugees living in a camp in Bangladesh are referring. Recently, a report compiled by the Physicians for Human Rights, which consists of large-scale efforts by medical experts to corroborate the accounts of refugees, came out. The US-based PHR investigated the mass atrocities globally, went on to collect large number of data regarding the atrocities carried out on the Rohingya population in the Rakhine state on August 27th last year.
The evidence we've collected from our field investigations, and the forensic evidence in particular, indicate that a large-scale and well-coordinated attack was perpetrated on the civilians, particularly the Rohingya civilians living in Chutpien on the afternoon of August 27th last year, almost a year ago, that involved the use of guns, machetes, multiple types of weapons against women, children, and men who lived in that village.
These are the reports that were collected by the PHR from villages of Chutpin, where the Myanmar security forces allegedly burnt homes and fired upon the Rohingya community. The Myanmar forces have rejected all the allegations of atrocities and also refused to give a comment on the report filed. Hundreds of thousands of Rohingyas have crossed the border to Bangladesh in just over 10 months after they were forced to leave their homes following an army crackdown triggered by insurgent attacks on the security forces.
Consistently, the survivors we talked to said that soldiers who were encamped and set up around the school came around the village in the afternoon of the 27th. They spread around. They told people to come out of their homes. They opened fire on them with guns. They and civilians, then non-Rohingya civilians, proceeded to kill survivors, slit their throats, perpetrate quite coordinated and planned out, it appears, acts of sexual violence also. And so those accounts and the physical and forensic evidence we've collected must be investigated as crimes against humanity.
On the other hand, the woes of the Rohingya refugees does not seem to end, as heavy monsoon and risk of landslides have forced them to relocate. UNHCR recently released a video which showed people building reinforcements, leaving the old camps and living in UNHCR tents.
Despite extensive efforts to contain the sufferings, the authorities have little to cheer for as the situation gets worse every day. Moving on, India, a land of vivid cultures and religions, saw the conclusion of the Holy Rath Yatra in the eastern city of Puri. Lord Jagannath, Balbhadra and Goddess Subhadra are taken out in beautifully decorated raths or chariots. After a stay of 9 days at the Gundicha temple, the deities again return to their abode in the same way, and this ritual is known as Bahuda Rath Yatra. We have a report.
Such was the grandeur on the occasion of Bahuda Rath Yatra when thousands of devotees were seen pulling the beautifully decorated chariots on the Grand Road at Puri. These three richly decorated chariots resembling temple structures carry the main deities, namely Lord Jagannath, accompanied by the Sudarshana Chakra, his elder brother Balbhadra and sister Subhadra in them. During the Rath Yatra, these deities ride from the Jagannath temple to the Gundicha temple, where they stay for 9 days. Thereafter, the deities again ride to the Jagannath temple, also known as Sri Mandir, and this return journey is known as Bahuda Yatra. It follows the same protocol and schedule as is found in the Rath Yatra.
আমি প্রথমবার এসেছি এখানে রথে ভালো লাগছে বেশ দেখতে আর সবথেকে ভালো যে ওয়েদারটা খুব বাজে ছিল কাল পর্যন্ত কিন্তু আজকে প্রভু মনে হয় ঠিক করে দিয়েছেন তো অনেক লোক এখানে এসেছেন সবাই দেখছেন খুব ভালো লাগছে সব মিলিয়ে
Around each of these chariots are 9 Parsva Devtas painted as wooden images representing different deities on the chariot sides. Besides this, each chariot is attached to 4 horses which are of different colors such as dark ones for Balbhadra, white ones for Jagannath and red ones for Subhadra. The most significant ritual associated with this yatra is the Chehra Pahara, in which the Gajapati king wears the outfit of a sweeper and sweeps all round the deities and chariots, which signifies that under the lordship of Jagannath there is no distinction between the powerful sovereign and the most humble devotee. Before the journey begins, a Mahanta is also performed by the local artists, what they believe is the favorite dance of Lord Jagannath.
जगन्नाथ जी का दर्शन हम लोग हर साल करते हैं लेकिन इस बार माहौल ही कुछ अलग है बारिश का मौसम है लोगों की काफी भीड़ जमी हुई है लेकिन सभी लोग काफी आनंद से और बहुत ही जोश के साथ यहाँ पे रथ की खिंचाई कर रहे हैं बहुत आनंद आ रहा है हम अपने आप को खुशनसीब महसूस कर रहे हैं कि हम यहाँ पे हैं जगन्नाथ जी की जय हो
During the Bahuda Yatra, the huge processions accompanying the chariots play devotional songs with drums, tambourines, trumpets and many others.
ये जगन्नाथ जी का सालों में एक बार रथ यात्रा जो होते हैं वो नवदिन यात्रा जो गुंडीचा यात्रा होते हैं आज नवदिन आज वापस यात्रा है इसी वजह से भगवान ये जो स्वर्गों से सारी देवता आकर शून्य में बैठे हुए हैं ये क्षेत्र को पवित्र करने के लिए सुगंधित करने के लिए भगवान जगन्नाथ बलभद्र सुभद्रा सुदर्शन जी को ऐसे धूप अर्पण किया जाता है
Bahuda Yatra thus makes for a fascinating sight as millions of people from the different corners of the country as well as outside seeks the darshan of Lord Jagannath.
India is home to hundreds of such festivals which not only invoke a sense of purity but also spread an atmosphere of gaiety. With that, we come to the end of this week's episode. See you next week. Take care and goodbye.